Welcome to Self-Perfected.
What do I say?
You say dramatize.
Oh yeah, are we talking about that again? Jeez. Hey everybody. Sorry to bring the drama right away in the morning.
Sorry to bring the drama.
Why do you think they call it Dramamine?
It's a great question. Great question.
should
You know
call
who
it
else
drama.
says?
How do you think they call it drama?
You know who else says dramatize? Actually, Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson
Right.
says dramatize. Yeah,
He's
so
Canadian though.
he's
Do they
Canadian.
wanna
Yeah, that's like kind of that
associate with
Canadian pass.
You sound just like a Canadian. You know.
I take my
I think-
Dramamine when I'm done drama.
There you go.
I think Cameron deep down like wants, I don't know, maybe like wants to have that like Canadian privilege thing. You know, where you
Canadian
can like say
privilege?
weird words. Like, you know
That's
how
what it
Christine
is.
will drop one of those random ass words sometimes, like about.
Do I
I've
sound
actually
like
never heard
that?
her say that.
She
I never
does
heard
not
her
say
that.
that. She does not say.
Hold on. I'm sorry, everybody. We're not getting to the potatoes and gravy yet, but you know, we do have to have our first introductory like random chat like I usually do.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, Mitch, what do potato chips come in?
Boxes.
I have never seen. I don't know what.
Did
you
that
guys
give
have
it away
in
where
this-
I'm from? I said boxes.
Right.
That's
What is it?
hilarious.
What do they come in?
It's funny because Mitch has to think about like, how do you say this word?
Yeah, I actually don't know which one's the right one. Bags. They come in a bag.
It sounds like you say
It's
begs.
not how you say it.
Yeah.
I've
One
heard
of
you say it.
One of you
Yeah.
Minnesotans said you had to change the rough the other day. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's right.
Okay.
they just
Okay.
said rough.
There's like Minnesotans in the city, and then there's like the country Minnesotans.
Oh, so are you the city guy?
Yes, I'm the more sophisticated, refined Minnesotan.
Is that as in the city? Do your potato chips come in bags?
That's
I
more.
just want to be clear to everybody. That's what Mitch says. He says bags. So
It does say begs. Also, so does Jess.
Hey, you ever watch on back in the day when they used to do those roasts? So they like bring someone on stage and then they'd all roast them. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
kind of fun.
Yeah, this is the roast of Mitchell
Like a
Snyder.
collective roast. Whoa. We started roasting Cameron. I threw in some stuff about Canadians.
you see
I
how
threw
I do it
Christine under
though?
the
Like
bus.
it's
Now
like
you
a
guys,
jujitsu kind of thing. I take not jujitsu. What's the one where you do like the
Judo.
judo? Yeah, it's like a
yeah.
judo thing. You take the roast and I re-roast. All right,
Redirect
It's called a
the roasting.
rotisserie.
it's a roast. It's a roastisserie.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So
Christine looks not
anyways,
impressed. Drake looks happy. Cameron looks so serious always.
I had this video I was going to share, but I want to make sure it's like what I want to share first.
Yeah, tell us. Give us the.
Well, I don't have to do it right away. I just. That's why if I'm distracted.
Yeah,
I'm
build
just trying
some
to check it.
suspense.
Yeah,
you know.
lube us up
Dra-
first. Don't just
dramatize it.
No, we'll
Cameron.
get into that later.
Okay.
It's a video of Max doing a math problem. I sent you guys on the chat.
Oh, well, you didn't send the video though. You just sent like
No, I know. That's
Okay,
why I was
okay.
just checking because I took multiple videos and I was checking to make sure it was the one I wanted. Because
Okay.
he did.
I was
several
learning something
problems.
the other day. Okay. I like going through YouTube and then I save stuff to you press the little watch later thing, and then you just assemble a whole random assortment of all these cool videos. And I was going through it. Hey, that's a
Wait,
cool.
do you
cup,
actually
Cameron.
watch your watch later?
Oh yeah, but here's how I do it. So I press you open the watch later feature and then you press shuffle, and it'll just feed you random ones. And it's really fun. For like 20 minutes at the end of the night, I'll be like chilling. And shit, I forgot what the thing was gonna be. Oh, I remember. But this, let see, because there's one thing where you learn stuff and then you just accumulate it in your mind and then you just malfunction. Then there's another thing where you
You're
apply.
describing school.
Yes.
What is that mug,
But see,
Christine?
this is my school.
Wow, where did you get that?
At the good old Jefferson General Store.
You got it in Jefferson? That's
I
cool.
did.
So if I were to apply the lesson from this extremely valuable watch later video, I would just change the subject and not get back to it. And everyone who listens to this would actually retain so much more.
Wait, you didn't even change the subject. What are you talking about? You just came back to it.
This is like meta on meta. It's very interesting.
So
what's
wait,
happening right now.
so wait. Hang
I
on.
got a good. Yo,
Hang
we
on,
need
hang
to
on.
freeze frame Christine's face right there. Earlier, Christine was like, "This is not very impressive."
I was-
Right there, she was like, I've seen that look before a few times.
Wait,
Mitch,
wait.
Did you have extra sea moss in your smoothie today?
Seriously. Kind of
No,
all
but I
over
do
the
have
place
grass-fed butter.
today. What's going on?
Okay.
Okay.
If I tell you what it is, it's gonna give away the secret. It's like the magician giving away the trick.
Wait, doing what? What are you talking about?
I'm
Like
lost.
the thing that I'm explaining, that I'm indirectly explaining. If I tell
No,
you
I
what
figured
it
it out
is,
already. I figured it
what,
out.
okay,
already.
what is it? What is it? What's
You're
your guess?
basically saying the way that we do this podcast is actually super effective because we're constantly changing the subject. And so it
Well,
actually
that is an indirect
supports
way of
you.
explaining the phenomena that I learned from my watch later video.
Okay, all right. So the phenomenon that you learn from your watch later video.
Yes, I'm like in the middle of it right now.
No, I know.
It's
I
like we're
get
playing
it.
psychologist.
No, I get it. I get
What
it.
is my condition?
I get your condition.
Too much
okay?
CMOS.
The condition is you build curiosity and you leave a cliffhanger.
Basically, okay, I'll just freaking say it so y'all don't think I'm crazy. It's
That's
talking
so
about how if
Too
anticlimactic.
late for that.
So
okay, I'm not gonna tell you.
right, no, that's
Fine
good.
then. Fine then, if you think that's anticlimactic, we're gonna make it extra climactic.
All right. So going on to Cameron, what did you have to share?
I'm just confused right
This
now.
intro is like a train wreck right now.
This is not
Okay.
I'm enjoying this
Throwing
very much.
shade. All right. All right.
I'm enjoying
all
this very much, and I'm sure our viewers are too. Hey, if you're one of our regular viewers,
right. Okay. You
drop
could
in
do
the
like a
chat how much
choose
fun
your own
you're having.
adventure through the podcast. The podcast will become more interactive. If you want to continue ongoing with experiencing this
Oh.
phenomenon, pause for 5 minutes, fast forward 5 minutes, and keep the episode going. If
Wait.
you want to know the spoiler alert, I'll tell you it. Okay. So choose your own adventure. If you're
Hold on,
live streaming,
I-
you have to meet it.
Here's how you do it. If there's people in the because we're living in the Facebook thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Drake will be A, I will be B, Christine will be C, Mitch will be D. So whoever you want to talk next.
Oh, I
letter.
like it. Wait, who's A and C for Cam? Well,
Drake A, Cameron B, Christine C, Mitch D.
I'm A, because Drake.
all right. The results are pouring
No
in.
one-
No, they pushed B. I saw it.
No one's
Um,
watching.
I saw a lot of B's.
I'm literally here watching the chat and there's no bees.
I
How many
bees in the
C's are there,
chat.
Christine?
How many what? C's?
How many C's are
There
there?
is literally no letters in the chat.
All right.
Okay.
So,
So you
that
can't
by
even talk.
default is B.
Always go with B. Thought it was C.
So oh yeah. So
The
Katie,
pressure on me to remember what I was even going to say. Jesus. I walked myself into this. That's all right. Comes with the territory.
I feel like this is part of the thing.
That part is not.
What you're doing right now is the thing.
That part's not, I promise.
I'm being sold on it. I'm just letting you know. I'm totally sold on it. I can't wait till you reveal it.
The big reveal. We'll tell you at the end of the episode, potentially.
There you go.
Guys, we
There you
got 4 C's. Okay. No one wants to hear any of y'all talk.
Wow. And they were all from Christine.
No,
Yeah, can we self-vote?
actually.
Go
Chantal,
ahead, Christine.
Sally,
Tell us.
Is he Cameron or
tell
C?
us something.
Christine?
No, well, what I was thinking, I've been binge watching soft white underbelly videos lately. And man, there are some serious characters that exist among us. Let's just put it that way. But something that I wanted to bring up actually was it's really, really interesting because I was telling Drake, it's like everyone kind of has like the same story, even though they have completely different lives. But it's like impossible to, well, the common denominator in all of these interviews, what I've realized is everyone has a fucked up childhood. Like that is literally the catalyst for like anything that happened, that anything that these people go through. So anyways,
And
it's just like,
they'll be like, oh, I had a good childhood, but then they'll start describing it and you're like, that wasn't
right. But even like, for example, like a con artist, you know what I mean? Like they're like a white collar crime kind of guy. And it's like, they're like, well, I had like a decent childhood. I had a mom and a dad. I had a roof over my head. I had food. But then there's still like the emotional, physical abuse, usually. You know what I mean? Like there's still some form of abuse. You just try to justify because you're like, well, my situation wasn't as bad as like that guy over there who had parents that like molested him or something. You know what I mean? But anyways, it's just interesting because like all this Sound of Freedom stuff is going on, but I'm like, this is the real Sound of Freedom, like literal real people that are going through
it's an
fucked up
actual
shit.
place in LA where these people live,
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
super interesting because like especially like that con artist guy, Christine sent me that one, and I was just like, whoa, this guy's life was super interesting because his crime was basically defrauding the mortgage system, right? And he figured out how to defraud the mortgage system for millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he was just like, no, I just figured out I could buy a house for this much, say it was this other amount, and then buy all the houses next to it and raise up the property value of this town. And
Wow.
like it was just like on a next level of what he was doing. It was really, in a way, impressive, but also at the same time it was just like, oh, I didn't even know you could do those things. And then he was talking about it's funny the way that he described, like, I know what I did was wrong and all this other stuff, blah blah blah, but it was more so like, because what he did didn't actually affect an individual. Like it wasn't like he was robbing somebody at gunpoint, or selling drugs or something like that. What he was doing was like, oh, you need a mortgage? I can help you get a mortgage. Like, let me just white out this part here and rewrite that. And there we go. Let's just submit that. And hey, look at that. You got approved when nobody else would approve you. And he was doing that. And then he would take it to the extreme of that and just doctoring stuff up so that you could get approved for a mortgage or whatever. And then he took it to an even more extreme where he created fictitious people, got them he created a completely fictitious persona, got them issued a real social security number. Yeah. Got a driver's license, all of this stuff.
How is that even possible?
I don't know. That's why I was like, how do you fucking do that? That is impressive.
That's crazy.
Right. But he just knew that system so well, where he was just like, yeah. And then I just created this fake person. This fake person bought a house. And then I created like 10 fake people, and they all bought 5 houses, and they all had net worth of $500,000. And then I just borrowed money against their houses for these fake people.
Oh, shit.
Dude, this like real life. You know how people play video games like The Sims and stuff, and he's like doing it in the real world.
This is what this guy did in real life. And then he's like, so then I had lines of credit where I was just basically pulling out like $500,000 here or there, and and then I would just leave. and then I'd create a fake sister for this fake person and have the fake sister call into the the mortgage company or whatever, or collections, and just say, hey, I know they're behind, but my brother is in a coma and he was in a tragic accident, and so he's not likely to come out of this coma, and if he ever does, he's never going to work again. And so then the mortgage company was just like, all right, well, I guess we're just gonna have to write this one off. They foreclose on the home. He doesn't care about that. He's like, I just wanted the money, right?
Was there anyone living in the home?
No, he said these were basically like crack houses that he was buying. And then he'd buy it for like 40 grand and then say that he bought it for 200,000. And then he bought like the next house next to it and do the same thing over and over and over again. And then he'd get a property appraiser to come in, and the property appraiser would be like, well, it's a shitty neighborhood, but that house just sold for 200,000, that one for 195, that one for 205. So I guess your house is actually worth 200,000. And then he would take that to the bank, and then the bank would give him a loan for 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is,
Wow.
right? And he's like, what they didn't realize was I was the one buying all the houses, making the
Right.
property go up. Yeah. So it was a really
How did they
interesting.
interview him? Was he like in jail or
No,
just?
he'd
He's
already
out
served
of
time.
jail.
He was
Oh,
already
okay.
in jail. He served time, and then
Now he's just chilling and
now
like,
he's free to roam the streets.
so he's just on the streets.
Well, no, now he's like, actually, what was really interesting, man, this guy's story is super interesting, right? Because check this out. He says, he had a good life in childhood, but then he also says that his father was an alcoholic and he could never impress his father. His father was abusive in certain ways, but like compared to other people, this is one of the people he's like, yeah, compared to other people, my life was good. I also struggled with dyslexia and, like severe learning disability. And when he got older, he realized just like he could never please his father, and none of his siblings could ever please his father. And so that was something that he was like always trying to do. And selling these mortgages, when he got into that and just kind of doctoring them up a little bit, he made a lot of
I
money.
wonder if he could plead. He'd be like, "Hey, that was actually my dyslexia." Like gets off.
Right.
I'm surprised he didn't say that he tried that.
But he's like, yeah, so after a certain point, like my father was really impressed because look, I had all this money, I had all these things, and all, right. But then he says when he got caught finally, he went to prison, and in prison they had asked him, hey, would you do a 60 minutes interview or what's the other one, a dateline interview, just talking about what you did, right? And I guess it was just like this point of like they want to blast his face and hear from the criminal, and because he was like the FBI's most wanted for a little based on these crimes, right? And so they wanted to do a dateline interview with him, and they told him, hey, we'll reduce your sentence if you do that. So he did it, and he said then they didn't reduce his sentence, and he was like, I got conned. And I was like, well, you're a con man. That's what they'll do to you. So that they did that to him like 3 times in a row and didn't reduce his sentence at all. They're like, no, this time we'll do it. This time we'll do it. And they kept fucking him over. And then he said eventually he met somebody in the prison camp who was a lawyer who also had schizophrenia. And he's like this guy seriously believed that God was talking to him in his head, telling him that he's chosen to be emperor of the world. He said, guy was clearly, schizophrenic, but the crazy thing was it didn't affect his law practice. And so the guy actually built all these businesses and was like super good at what he did, to the point where he made like millions and millions of dollars and started buying up all these corporations. And like he tried to stage a coup in the Congo, right? And then something that he did, like he was like something that he did got him locked up, right? Because of the coups that he was trying to stage. Insane, right? So this guy meets this lawyer in jail, and he's like,
I feel like maybe the emperor schizophrenia complex sort of was interfering a little bit.
Yeah, right. But he says he meets this guy, and this guy was getting people walked out of prison by submitting paperwork for them. And he was like, hey man, here's my situation. And the guy's like, I got you. And he had his sentence reduced by like 12 years, like immediately. So the guy actually did know what he was doing to some extent. But he says while he was in prison, he met these other guys who had these incredible stories, and he started writing their memoirs. And then these memoirs got picked up for movies. And so a lot of the memoirs that he's written have been turned into like Hollywood movies. And basically this guy is like, it's like, I get to like make art and write stories and all this. And like, essentially he can't go broke. Like it's not within his programming to go broke. He's like either going to be scamming somebody, or he's like finding some other like, oh, I can write these memoirs and do these other things and find a way. He's like, and a lot of times he's like, I have to check myself because I'm just so good at talking to people. I have to realize like, oh, they think I'm going to do all these things for them. And so I have to like really clearly explain like, okay, I cannot guarantee that this is going to happen. This other thing is not going to happen. And I understand the way that I painted it. It sounds really good. But he's like, I'm just so good at like talking to people and communicating that like people just want to give me their money and they want to do what I say. It's like, whoa, that is very, very interesting.
It shows you like the power of like the unconscious programming.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The resonance. Yeah.
Exactly that. And so it's been really interesting watching these interviews with Christine every once in a while. Like,
did y'all watch the one with the clown?
I did.
She did. I did not.
That was fascinating, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Like that
talking
guy
about childhood and all that stuff, right?
Well, it's exactly. And then it's interesting because I saw like some of the people's comments on that video specifically, and they were like, wow, this is a perfect explanation also of OCD. Because you know how a lot of people will say jokingly, like, oh, I have OCD. It's like, no, you don't got OCD.
But then you learn like what they really mean by it. And it's
Right.
like, wow.
It's like a serious like impediment. You know what I mean? It totally destroys like your quality of life.
It's like the mind totally being in charge, and then the person being totally in fear of that, and then trying to like somehow battle it and appease it. And yeah, it's really fascinating. I started watching some videos on people with, actually, I had seen a video prior to that. It was like one of those, History Channel documentary style where it's like, I like the software underbelly. It's just the person talking.
Yeah.
Versus like when they do documentaries and it's clipped and all this stuff.
Yeah. And it's like this exciting thing and this.
You're getting
that.
more like the producer's version of what they
Dramatized.
think it is. Yeah, it's all the drama. You're getting like the producer's version, not the person talking about it, so much.
Yeah.
Because I had seen this one guy, it was one of those like documentary style, and this guy had a family. He was probably 45 or something, he had like teenage kids and a wife, and he was OCD, and it was very similar to like the way that other guy described it in the software underbelly one. They just didn't go into as much depth of him explaining. It was more like showing him freaking out about something, like again, like that whole thing. But he would obsessively all day, literally for like they said, like 14 hours a day, arrange stuff in his house. And like he like had this whole system, like using his fingers, he'd be like, okay, like this, like, oh, like these books back here, like, okay, he would like check it and he'd be like, okay, that's perfect. Okay, perfect. He'd be like, okay, that's perfect. Like he'd be like checking everything based on like different lengths of his fingers and stuff, and making
like muscle testing on a whole nother level.
Basically. But and it was like, it was so funny / sad, like so the wife basically, he hadn't left the house in like 13 years or something, right? The guy. And the wife was like, we're gonna go, they were in Britain, they were like, we're gonna go on a holiday to Blackpool or whatever the place was, right? And so they go to this other town, and one of the big points that came up was like he had his travel bag like up on a shelf, and it had to be perfectly there. And like even the idea of taking it down and go through the contents, he's like, if I open it up, something like my wife is going to die or something. It was something like that. And so they take it and everything, and they go on the holiday or whatever, and he's got it in his hotel room in a specific place, and he had to make the hotel room perfect, and organize it. And he wouldn't open his bag. He's like, if I open it, such and such thing will happen or whatever. And then they went to the beach, and like everybody, he's like watching all these people run around barefoot, and he's like talking to them like, hey, you should put some shoes on, like you could like cut your foot open on some glass, and he's like describing everything that would happen if that occurred. And he was like, even as I'm standing here doing this interview, he's like, I know, like I'm just thinking like a hand is going to reach out from the camera, from the lens, and like choke my wife to death. And he's like, that's what he's imagining
Wow.
is going to happen. So it's like he has to do these rituals to make that thing that he's imagining is going to happen not happen. Right. So it really shows you. And also like with that clown interview, remember that part, Christine, where he said he went like when he was little, I think, or he was younger, and his parents took him to the psychiatrist or whatever because he was having all these obsessive thoughts. And the guy was like, the psychologist or psychiatrist was like, you should replace them with a positive thought. And the guy was like, fuck you. He's like, that's what I've been doing this whole time. That's the problem. He said, the problem is I have to obsessively, like, for example, if a thought would come up where he'd be like, my sister's going to die. And he'd have to be like, I'm going to save my sister. I'm going to save my sister. He had to like say it over and over and over a certain way in a certain number of times. And he was explaining the thought process of like, if he said it 3 times, that's not good because that's related to the number 13 because of the 3. So it's like if he did it, did we talk about this before already?
Yeah, we did.
I feel like we already talked about this.
Yeah, but
definitely described all this.
Something interesting about a lot of these interviews is a lot of them said, the therapist couldn't help me. Like I would go to a therapist and they would tell me, I can't help you, or they would try to refer me out to somebody else, or or they're giving they
would say was just reinforcing the problem, and the
right.
person could see that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess that was the point I was trying to bring up, was like the guy was like, he was just telling him to do what he was already doing. He was like, this is the problem. I don't want to do that. But it really, I was looking at that point of like, that's what the whole positivity spirituality thing is. It's like people actually, and I mean, I could see this from the beginning. It's like you're having all this negativity in your life, and then the solution presented to you is, oh, that's because you're negative, just be positive. But you're doing it from the starting point of trying to balance out the negative, and you're really just reinforcing it because you're saying the negative is valid, and that's why I have to do the positive. And so, like we've been saying for a long time, it's not solving the problem because there actually is negativity. It's almost making it like the negativity is not a real thing. But it's like, well, where is all the anxiety coming from? Like if positivity were real, if there was actual real positive, like love, if love was real, if all these positive things were real, then where would all the negativity come from in our life? When you actually look at it, it comes from the fact that we have to compete for survival.
I was
like,
just
obviously that's where, yeah.
I was just talking with someone yesterday, and they were saying like, all these gurus out here who are like, hey, just look at the positive, like that's like going to a drug dealer, because it's like, hey, all you have to do for your life to be good is feel good. And if you feel bad, stop feeling bad and just feel good. Don't even look at the feeling bad. It's like, yeah, fucking this feels great. Like, why wouldn't I just keep coming back to this? I'm always going to feel good. And I don't have to look at the bad things that are going on in my life. Okay. Versus like
that in a form is almost like the, like this, it'd be like multiple personality disorder. Because then you can get really good at faking. Oh yeah, I'm so positive. It's so amazing. Surround yourself with vision boards and all that. But then, there are those times where you don't fucking feel good. But then it's like a suppression, and you're like, no, I'm just this guy, and you develop all these characters.
Right. Because the alternative is you actually have to face the things that are very challenging, and that doesn't always feel good. And it's like, it's tough. It's like, imagine, okay, look at it from the perspective of somebody who tries to get off of a drug, or tries to even quit drinking, just something as simple as that. It's like, that's very challenging. You're like, then I have to deal with all the fucking shit that's going on in my life, all the thoughts that I have. And, I'm trying to avoid those things. It's just as potent as being addicted to drugs, in the sense of like, obviously being addicted to drugs is worse, right? But it has the same effect as far as the way that your life progresses. Yeah.
That's really interesting because so I haven't watched much of the Soft White Underbelly interviews yet, but I see the value in it because it's like, as the equality, as all of us, it's like each person has like a key to like reflect back to you. right? So even in this, crazy interviews with someone that you like, why would I ever listen to some guy on heroin out on the street? But it's like, even within that, there's like, you can learn from that experience. But man, when you're talking about the OCD thing, it's really interesting because like I never had, let's say, full on like OCD or anything, but I definitely remember as a kid having those same thought patterns. So like I was like in track after school. I just fucking hated it, but like I was just in it because I just wasn't even aware of the decision, whatever. But I'm like in track. I remember we would go on runs,
What
and
event
you know
did
how
you
I got
run?
the mile or 2 mile, I don't know, one of the longer ones.
Okay.
The one
I
where they're
just
like,
ran until
wow.
they told me it was time to stop running.
It was terrible.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
ran.
And then I was in cross country. Were you in cross country too, Drake?
I was.
But Mitch was
In
actually really
Florida,
good
that sounds
because he
fucking
did it so
horrible.
much. He would run really fast to get it over with.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done. So
running in circles.
it was like, okay, because I would be alone with my thoughts out running. And this is like in middle school, right? So like middle school angst like starts.
What were you
And
trying to
then-
outrun, Mitchell?
What were you running away from, Mitch?
Yeah.
His thoughts.
Well, yeah. So that's what I started to notice. It started when I was even younger and I would play hockey because everyone in Minnesota plays hockey because what the fuck else do you do in the winter? And it would be like, this was the first time I would ever notice it. At the beginning, there's like a face off. So they like drop the puck and then you play. So I would be like looking at the ref about to drop the puck, and my mind would give me like a sequence before the puck dropped. In order for us to score and win the game, I would have to I'd look to the left and I'm like, fuck, and then I'd have to like do the whole sequence. So look like left, right, left, right, left, left, right. That was like the basics of it.
So
But then I had to
code in a video game.
Yeah, that's probably where that's crazy. Because then I remember I would because it was like I needed tabs on everything. Because I was like, I'd be like the defensive player. So I needed to know where the goalie was, make sure that the goalie wasn't like, fucking around, look at the bench, whatever. But it was this whole fucking thing. But I remember being like, no, don't look at the audience. Because as soon as you look at the audience, you have to do the whole thing before the puck dropped. Otherwise, something bad was going to, it was like you'd get scored on or get injured. So that was the other thing, the impulse you with is if you're going back to your zone, and well, if you get checked from behind too far away from the board, you can break your spine and end up paraplegic or like die. So the impulse you with all this fear. So every time I had hockey practice, a game, a scrimmage, any of that, it was just fear. And the whole time I can see obviously what I was missing is I did not have the vocabulary to understand what was going on. So it was just an emotional reaction the whole time. But then it was fun because every once in a while you score. So it's like this whole game. But then that developed to then when I would do cross country running. And it'd be like, on those curbs on the side of the road, how they're like, I don't know, 3 feet apart. And if you stepped with a certain part of your foot on one part, you then had to step with a certain side of the other. But I didn't even know what bad thing was going to happen then. But it was like, yeah, like your mom's going to die or like shit like that. I just remember being like, everyone probably goes through this is just normal.
Dude, how many times have kids talked about don't step on a crack, break your mother's back?
Right. But then I knew
that just
I knew
like some cultural OCD thing.
Yeah, and I knew that on some level that didn't make sense.
Right.
But I was still just like, no, it was more I would feel off.
I had that.
Oh shit. It's coming back to what I started the episode with. Wow, it's resonating through. It was like a open loop of sorts, right? Where it was like if I step on with this foot, it was like I had to do it on the other side to feel like it was completed. And if it wasn't, I was not at inner peace. And so to bring it back almost full circle was then in high school when I learned that you could smoke weed or drink alcohol. I was like, oh, this is great. Because then I don't have to have this whole thing in my mind. I can just, it's all good. It was like you have control over your inner state. That was the value I saw in smoking or drinking. But it's the same fucking thing. I mean, it was, my own version of it. Let's say some high school kid, whatever. But it was, yeah. And then the positivity thing. It started, I took a psychology class in high school. And they're like, yeah, you have neurochemicals in your brain. I was like, oh, that's my problem. My neurochemicals are off. Got it. So it's like, cool. I can just focus on that then. But it was no resolution at all to the underlying fact that I was experiencing despair and shit. And like I didn't have the vocabulary to explain it. So finally, then 10 years later, smoking weed, all that positivity, learn about self-development, meditation, all that. Finally, I'm going through like all the trainings and stuff. Then I meet you guys at a gin event. And then Avery's like telling me, I remember talking to Avery. I was like, Avery, is it like this? Is like this how reality works? He's like, no. I'm like, no, okay. Is it like this? And he's like, you're gonna get techno tutor, because if you don't have techno tutor,
What were you
whatever
asking?
is not gonna matter.
Where you're like, okay, do I step this many times on the curb or this many times?
He was like,
It's not about the
no,
curb.
no, and you're like, no. Okay, that was a joke. Do I step with my heel on the curb or with my toes? on the
Drake,
curb?
were you
Think about
there?
superstition. Like
Okay.
superstition is good. Sorry.
Well, it was like superstition galore, and that was like my whole fucking life. Because then I'm like, oh, if I can like, have these books on my shelf. I wasn't like poking the books, to make sure it's perfect, but I can see how someone would take it to that point of like the book's got to be in this order and whatever.
Well, it was so obvious that what was going on was like, there's the idea the person has that I have to do this to stop this from happening. But what it appears objectively is that the only way for them to not participate or what they believe in thinking about the thought, which is generating fear and anxiety, is to sort of absorb themselves in this particular ritual thing. Just like kind of takes their mind off of it. So in their mind, the idea is that it stops it from happening, but really it's like my way of coping with this thing that keeps coming up that I don't want to think about. You see what I mean? I don't want to experience that anxiety.
That's crazy, because that was like, yeah.
Did you guys ever see? I mean, it was a long time ago. There was this movie called, I think it was called As Good as It Gets. It was Jack Nicholson.
No.
Do you know who Jack Nicholson is, like the guy from The Shining, and like famous
Departed
Jack Nicholson guy. You guys know, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I could be wrong, but I think it's from that movie, but I could be wrong. I feel like that meme is from that movie, but I'm not certain about that. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. As Good as It Gets meme.
So Jack Nicholson's also he's the famous golfer, right? What's that guy?
Yes, the famous golfer Jack Nicholson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
No, but maybe not from that movie. I don't know what that meme is from, but anyways, he plays like an OCD guy, and he's like, I think it's also like a romantic comedy movie where he's like trying to fall in love or something. I don't know, but he's like an obsessive compulsive, and he's always like turning the doorknob 3 times, washing his hands a bunch, and all this. And so it just kind of dramatizes the point.
Oh,
but of course, it was a long time ago. I think I saw the movie when I was a kid. I don't remember it really going into what his actual reasoning as to why he was doing it. It was more just like a weird personality trait. So when I was young, that was my exposure to OCD. And whether they did explain it or not more, I don't know. I didn't process that. So I always thought OCD, like growing up, was just like a weird quirk about people. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a weird behavior pattern they have, not understanding the internal point of why they're doing it. And so like watching those software underbelly videos, it's weird because they'll be like, this is OCD, this person has OCD, but they'll be like, this person is schizophrenic, or this person is a sociopath, or this person is that. But when you listen to it, it's like they're all kind of actually the same thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they are, they aren't. Like there's different expressions of it, but it really comes down to the person. It's like their mind is in control. And they're not directing the point.
Like varying levels of compulsions, like where like you can't stop whatever it is that you're addicted to, essentially.
Yeah, like the schizophrenic has a whole story that's like this imaginative thing that they are participating in, that they have to do something based on. Whereas the OCD, it's more like a particular thought that comes up. It's not maybe like a whole elaborate fantasy, but it's the same basic point that's occurring. Did you watch that one? It was like it was the one about the girl. It was a black girl that had autism and sociopathy.
Oh, she started watching that one.
Yeah, I didn't finish it though.
It was interesting because she didn't go into, as what were we gonna say?
No, I was gonna say like her story though. I was like, there's another one where like sexually abused. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, she was sexually abused, but she didn't really explain so much her internal point. It's like she maybe, I don't know if she just didn't talk about it or she wasn't as aware of it per se, but she just kept bringing up the point of she doesn't experience emotions like other people. Like she would say she would be like cognitive about emotions. Like her example that she gave was she would see, like, let's say there was like a commercial about a dog. Yeah, there was some money donations about some dog that was being killed, or I don't know, whatever. And she was saying, like, I forget what the specific point was she brought up, but it was something about like an animal being hurt or something like that. And she was like, her friend might be like, wow, isn't that sad? And she would be like, okay, it's an animal, this is what's happening to them. That's a bad thing. Okay, that's probably that would be sad. Yes, that's sad. So it's like she was saying how she didn't feel the emotion or the feeling. It was like she would be cognitive about it.
Interesting.
So I'm like,
Sounds like if you were to ask ChatGPT.
but I mean, also, it's like an interesting point because, oh, she's different. Everyone else who just feels the emotion is normal.
Yeah.
As if feeling the emotion or feeling the feeling, however you want to put it, is like a good thing. And she
Yeah.
was like, there was something wrong with her,
Mm.
as opposed to seeing it all as something's wrong there, because you're just being manipulated by the feeling and she's having the thought and then she's thinking that something is bad about her.
Right.
And then she described this one time where she was in this like group. It was like a hostel sort of thing or whatever. And, or I don't know, some shelter. And there was a bunch of girls and one of them said some joke and they all laughed. And then the girl realized, oh, she didn't laugh. So then she laughed, but it was like after the fact. And then everyone looked at her like, the fuck. And then the other girl was like mad at her, threatening her later, like, you're a fake bitch, like saying that to her, and it was like this whole thing where she was just like, oh no, like they know, like, like it was causing a problem for her. And I'm like, I could see that situation occurring. I can like visualize it, you know what I mean? Like this group, she laughs later, but she was doing it because she was like, oh shit, they're gonna find out that I'm not laughing, so I need to laugh. But then that created more of the problem because they were like, why are you laughing after the fact? You're trying to make fun of her or something like that. And so it was interesting because either way you look at it, like every single person they interview, it's like their mind is just, oh, did you see that? Did you watch that one I sent you, Drake, about the Doomsday guy?
Oh yeah, the Doomer.
What did you think about that one?
that is pretty funny, actually. I think, was he from Florida? Was he from Florida? He
Can't
might have been.
remember.
There's a few of them that are like, they're from Florida. I'm like, hey, it's my guy.
Oh god.
I didn't know what to expect from that one, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a really interesting interview.
But he was I didn't finish it, actually. He was talking about the point that I got to was him breaking down, like, so there are, the idiots who just think life is great and they're optimistic and whatever. They don't even know there's anything wrong going on. And then there's the people who know there's a problem, but they're optimistic about it. And then there's the people who are like, there's a serious problem, but they think like the technology is going to solve it in the future or something like that. And then there's the people who, like, they know there's a problem and they know there's no solution and we are all fucked. And I'm kind of at that level. I was like, okay, all right. And then the interviewer, Mark, he's like, oh, so do you think that maybe with technology and solutions in the future, like maybe some of these things can be helped? And he's like, oh, you're one of those optimistic ones. he's like, well, I guess, I don't know.
His whole basic point was just like everything humans have done have brought the world to a point of total ecological collapse, inevitable, like there's nothing that can be done about it. Everything, like we're all everything is doomed. And he was like,
he kept saying like the world would be better without humans.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want to, he's like, I don't agree with like killing people. He's like, but people should stop having kids. And that's the only thing, that's the only way we could redeem ourselves. It's just zero population.
Yeah.
And that was his whole point. And it's it sounds kind of superficial, like when we just describe it like that. But if you watch the interview, you can see the guy's thought process and like how he's done all the research and figured all these things out. And it was really interesting. So you see like all these different people and how, man, there was another one I was thinking of too. I can't remember which one it was, but
Someone was telling me
like-
about an interview with the main interviewer, Mark, right?
Mhm.
And they were saying how he basically said like there's the common thread is the education level of everybody, like everybody's
Oh,
education.
interesting. Yeah.
And it was interesting because they were saying like, if you look at it, to him it's obvious because he's talking to all these people who are on Skid Row, who are homeless, who are addicted to drugs, or have some hard life circumstances where they're in prostitution or something like that. And he's like, from that perspective, these people they're just interviewing, they're being honest about their lives, and they're just like, yeah, this is my childhood, this is how I grew up, whatever. And it's like, oh shit, like you can see you had very poor education, it ended you up here, right? And then the person I was talking to was saying like how it's basically like, when you read through the destiny material, it's like there's the rich, they're like the conscious, right? The elite is the conscious, right? And then you have the subconscious, which is like the middle class, and then you've got the unconscious, which is all the like the undesirables, right? And it's like when you're dealing with the unconscious, you can see what's actually happening in society, really. And if you're looking at the world at large, it's like the vast majority of it is the unconscious. It is
That was the one thing that was interesting about that doomsday guy is he was like, what's it gonna look like? I forget what the interview was asking him, but it was kind of like, what do you think it's gonna look like? And the guy was basically like, look at Skid Row. He's like, that's the reality that's coming for everybody. So it's a really interesting point of like, when you listen to what Bernard explains, it's like, I'm not saying it's inevitable. It's just when we don't focus, when we don't face that negative point, and it's not just the negative within yourself, like the negative feelings, it's actually look at the reality for people. And then you have, like, for example, the conscious part, which is just the positivity. So we have the elite, which is not about blaming them. It's just they understand how the system works, and they're not changing the system so that it works for everybody. Again, it's not to blame them. It's just that's where it's at. So it's kind of like similar to when we go into, well, I'm just going to be positive. It's like you're not actually changing the system that's within you to like, okay, what is this negative stuff? What is going on? And a lot of it, see, here's the problem with the spirituality point, is you think that I can just change the negative stuff for myself and then I can have a good life. I can be okay. I can feel positive. I can do all that, but not realizing the system at large is what gives you that ability to have a good life. That's why the elite have the quote good lives, because the system is working for them because they know how to work it, right? So if you're thinking I can just solve the problem individually, and there's a really great interview or audio from Bernard called Happiness is an Inside Job. It's something like that, right? Where he's like handling that objection of people saying it's an inside job and really explaining how it all is based on the system itself that we have here. So it's like, I mean, it's obvious if all the trees died, we would have no, I mean, just making it, you have, I know there's algae and other things too, but if all the plants died, we would have no oxygen. We would have nothing to filter the carbon dioxide and make oxygen. So we can't just say, oh, it's just me. My happiness is just my internal state for myself. It's like, if that were true, you would need nothing external. You wouldn't need food, because if you don't have food, you don't feel good. If you're tired, you don't feel good. If you're like, there's obvious physical things. Like if all the oxygen went out of the room you were in, you would immediately die. So it's not logically possible that you can just be happy within yourself only and totally ignore what else is going on in the world. And that's kind of how I see the point about, like you said, where he said it's about the education level of everybody. Because I don't know what he makes. I didn't see the interview, but a lot of people would interpret that as, oh, well, they didn't finish high school, they didn't finish
Right.
college and all that stuff. And in a lot of cases, that is the case for these people. But in itself, that's not the solution. Because even if everybody went to college, the problem is not that there aren't enough engineers. And actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about today, was this point of, I was talking with Katie this morning, and she was talking about how AI, she was talking about this writer's strike that's going on right now. Have y'all heard about
In
this?
Hollywood.
Here,
I have
actually,
heard about this.
I'll share about it on here. Because she was just telling me about it. I didn't really know much. Right. So it's like a writers guild, which is all the people who write for like Hollywood and Netflix and all these things, I guess, TV stuff. But this really sums it up as far as I can tell. And what she was saying was that her perspective was that it was about them trying to reestablish their contracts because AI is coming in to make sure that AI is not going to replace them so that they can have secure jobs and all that, right? And then we got onto the topic of like how AI, like imagine getting to a point where you can literally log into your whatever app and you tell it, I want to watch a Victorian drama set in outer space, where the lead person has this personality or whatever, and there's this type of conflict, go. And then it like generates this total unique movie for you or series for you to watch. And there's elements of it that you put into it, and there's elements of it that it generates on its own based on its knowledge of you and what you like and don't like, and even eye tracking and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a generative type of AI, right? And so we were talking about that, of like how eventually you can imagine 10, 15, whatever the timeline is, that it will replace the human creative point. And it doesn't mean that a human can't also create something, right? But what I realized is, okay, because I was telling her like, well, like there's all this generative stuff right now, and I just don't see yet right now that it's going to replace like a Netflix show. So it's not yet going to replace like the human element of like humans creating some show, right? But it's not so much about it totally replaces it. It's just like, does it get people's attention? So is it dividing up people's attention? So is it feasible to spend a bunch of money hiring all these actors and production budget and location shooting and all that stuff, when the person might watch that for 10 minutes and watch something else for 10 minutes? They're not only, and I was going to show you guys this. I mentioned this to you the other day, Mitchell. I saw this, like, I don't even know why it was recommended to me, probably just because of the AI stuff. But I wanted to play this. It's not a very long clip. And I think you guys will like this. But I want to show a few things real quick. Hold on, I gotta get this out of the way. Go away.
The funny thing is if you wanted to do some generative AI movie script, like you'd have to know how to fucking read or
okay.
like,
So let me
express
show
your
you guys a
thoughts.
couple things, and then I want to make a point about it. So you're right, I agree, but you don't have to copy Netflix. You don't have to make the same thing as Netflix. You could just make something that's interesting. Okay. And like any one of us could basically do what I'm about to show you. Right. So imagine you don't know how to draw, you don't know how to make images, you don't know how to use Photoshop or anything like that, really. You just know how to go on Midjourney, and you know how to go to like the apps where it makes the person's face animate, and like you can type in the script of what you want them to say. Okay. So check this out.
Grab that Mountain Dew. Wormhole closes in 5 minutes.
What planet are you guys from?
Planet Mountain Dew, the place where all your dreams come true.
Just get excited.
So, do your toilets use Mountain Dew water?
No. We pee in plastic bottles.
Okay, so
Bro, I'm buying Mountain Dew.
I'm gonna come back to it in a moment. First of all, it's like a pretty funny ad if it were a real ad.
That is an amazing.
You know what I mean? Like it's just some guy made it, right? It's not a real ad. It's like a fake thing, but it works as a Mountain Dew ad. But do you see how like they took the images? I mean, I can see what the person did. Like they went into Midjourney and they're like, you know, fat guys, I don't know what style, Balenciaga style photo shoot, outer space, you know, latex,
Green.
neon green, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they get a bunch of those things, you know, like outer space bubble, Mountain Dew factory, you know, like futuristic. And then they get a bunch of these things and then they can put it together like that. And okay, so on a surface, it's like, okay, that's pretty funny. That's creative. It's got almost 1 million views, right? It's 2 months old, right?
Damn, Mountain Dew needs to pay this guy.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. So that gets popular. I mean, relatively like 100,000 views. So probably on some Reddit, there's some very niche Reddit where people are like, oh, check this out. This is funny, you know, all this, right? Okay. So now check this out. Okay. Let me show you a couple more.
Just gotta say that beat was a banger.
It was actually pretty cool. Like it was, so there was some creativity to it, right? But you don't need to have a lot of like skill per se, right?
Yeah.
You just
Okay.
know how to prompt the music generating AI.
Yeah, probably that was made by a person. I would assume that the music stuff is not that good yet, but you could probably go on like Fiverr and pay somebody to make like a cool beat. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Okay, so now this is a different channel.
All my boys move together as one. We squeeze in this bitch like the meat in a bun.
Dr. Pepper.
They say we're too big, that we move in mass. All my boys are huge. You can kiss this ass.
You see how like they create these images, right?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Big Al. He ain't with us no more. Planet Mountain Dew went and started a war.
Okay. Do you see how they brought the Mountain Dew thing in?
Yeah.
Dr. P don't run. Nah, we take it slow. Till we creep up on you like a buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see how they took that point that was whatever relatively popular point, like a trending point, and now it's like they're creating like another, this is a different person putting something on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more I want to show you on this just to kind of put the point together. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm
here's,
thoroughly entertained. I'm just.
all right. So now here's another one, a different channel.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And look at the description. Planet Dr. Pepper has broken the soft drink peace treaty. Now the fast food mafia has, I mean, they're going to explain it, but
As humanity began to explore space, corporations around the world scrambled to claim newly discovered planets. Each major brand quickly established outposts all across our galaxy. As the number of brands in space rose, the Second Polar War broke out between Planet Mountain Dew, Planet Pepsi, and Planet Dr. Pepper. Thousands of lives were lost before a ceasefire was negotiated by the fast food mafia. A treaty was signed establishing peace between the brands, and life returned to normal on the soft drink planets. That was until the attack.
Sir, we have ships incoming.
Who is it? Is it adult baby?
No, it looks like ships from Planet Dr. Pepper.
Hail their flagship and see if we can establish communications.
you see it's all AI.
They're not
generated
responding.
stuff.
Alert the crew. I need all hands on
Now
deck.
they're using the voice cloning.
Yeah.
Arnie, we received a distress signal from the ship PMD Dewfire. Planet Dr. Pepper is attacking Planet Mountain Dew.
What? Those bastards. Call up the box. I'll be at the bridge in 5 minutes.
So it's like they're using the images to create like the narrative, the atmosphere.
Is he on the line?
Yes, Captain. He is. Patching him through now.
Arnie Raffle III. After all these years, you call.
Are you finally ready to come back to the family your grandpa abandoned?
I'm not calling about joining the fast food mafia, Box. We have a problem. Planet Mountain Dew is under attack by Planet Dr. Pepper.
What? That's a violation of the Soft Drink Planet Treaty. Why would they sacrifice decades of peace?
I don't know, but it's our obligation to help Planet Mountain Dew. Assemble the fast food mafia. I'll meet you at the wormhole.
You ready to make a delivery, McRonald?
We're off to Planet Mountain Dew to make some dreams come true, and some nightmares too.
All right. So it's like this whole universe that's like somebody was like, I was looking at the comments. I don't know if it was this one. It was on one of them, and somebody was like, what did they call it? The soft drink planet lore is more interesting than the last 5 Disney movies or something like that. Right?
Dude, I could see how like this can become a very easily, like, you know, just creative people around, you know, the world, just like, oh dude, I want to get in on this, and then like I'm creating my episode, and like whose ever episode gets really popular, it's like okay, and then people will just like jump from episode to episode and like, oh wow, and then, oh, I love when, you know, Skeezy whatever Stank Studios, like they make their episodes, like they're the best, and like, oh, I hope he like we get a cameo. It's almost like, you know what it's like? It's like remember in the 2000s, the early 2000s, when you know, a rap track would come out, and then every hip hop artist would have a remix to this track, and you're just like waiting for your hip hop art, like, oh man, that went so hard. Like that's what this is, but with like the creativity of like,
well, a lot of them are even
scripts
titled like I don't have my search bar here, but it was like, you know, Dr. Pepper Planet diss track or something like that, and they're like doing these like AI generated raps, you know, like back and forth on each other. It's like this whole thing.
Okay, I remember in the past where I used to look at this and then be like, this is so retarded. Now I just realized it's a shift that happened with me a while ago, where I was like, oh, we just have to get that much better at what we're doing, because you have a bunch of grown men who are going to jerk off to this stuff instead of actually stepping up and be like, oh, how do we like actually deal with reality and make sure that we change the system? So
yeah, no, that's fun.
So it's just really interesting because you can see how, like, if you look at collectively the number of views, it's like millions of views on all of those together. So you've got over here, you've got Netflix. Let's say Netflix never uses AI. But then you have over here millions of views on this. So people, it's like the AI is allowing the average random person who might have some creative point, but is not going to be able to compete with Netflix, but they are competing in a way. It's like, if you have, now that's just like one random video that was recommended to me, and I could see all this stuff that was created from it. Yeah. Right. And then, but that's taking attention away from like, so I could see how the writer's strike, them trying to get Netflix to not, or whatever the point is about not using AI, it's not really going to go anywhere, because they're not just competing with AI within like the job they're at.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you work for a big company that produces software, you're not just competing with the company that's going to use AI to replace you there. You're competing with the fact that someone over here can use AI to compete with that company.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? There was another thing I wanted to show you guys. We already talked about this between us, but this is really fascinating. Hold on.
You're gonna show the stuff with that chick with the pink hair?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
The NPC stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I actually looked it up. Like, what was the real thing? And there's more than one of these. I thought this was like there was just one of them, but there's like people are posting her whole life thing on here. So I'm just going to show the beginning for anyone who hasn't heard about this, but I want to show the end also, because I skipped to the end to see, like, I was skipping through, like, is this a continuous thing? This is a continuous thing. This is for over an hour. I thought it was like a compilation. I thought it was a compilation. It's not. I like scanned through it, and then I scanned to the end to see how does he actually end this. I was like, does she get tired? And it's really fascinating because no, I haven't seen anyone talk about this on the couple of videos that I watched describing this whole thing.
Okay.
Strong woman, take your jug. Yeah, strong woman. Hee ha, yes. The guy feeling like a cowgirl. Let me read it, huh? Take your who? Take your pro. Ice cream so good. Yeah, strong woman. Gang, 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 gang. That was good. Coconut. Gang, 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 gang. Grab. Ice cream so good. Gang, 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 gang. Yes, back on. Gang, 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 gang. Ooh, take your destiny. Take your smoke. Ice cream so good. Hee ha, yes. The guy feeling like a cowgirl. Let me read it, huh? That was good.
I'll pause for a moment. For anyone who has no clue what's happening right now, like if I didn't already know what it was, I'd probably be very confused, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, actually, I'll share the screen so I can show what I'm talking about here. But basically, you see these like little. I don't actually. I think this is TikTok. Is it TikTok?
It says TikTok in the
it says
description.
TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Like I've watched a couple things on TikTok. Remember, like we did an episode where I talked about it. That's the last time I ever looked at TikTok. So I don't really understand how it works from this perspective of like live streaming on TikTok, I guess.
Just look at how much shit is on the screen already. Isn't that crazy?
So it's like, I'm assuming that people can buy stuff and send little gifts. And then there's like emojis that go along with the gift.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's as far as I understand. And then it's like they can give multiple of the same thing. So like you see here, it says GG times 7.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's when she says gang gang.
Yeah.
I think that's what she's saying. Right.
Yeah.
I'll play it.
Coconut. Ice cream so good. Gang, 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 gang. Ice cream so good.
See, and then here it's like it's buffering. See those dumbbells? She'll say like, ooh, strong woman or something like that. So there's like different. So basically she has some kind of NPC reaction or response to each of those emojis as it appears.
Yeah.
And then if they do like multiple, like times 7, she does it like 7 times or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because people, I see like commentary and it's like, oh, this just shows like everyone's doomed. Like if you look at the comments of this video, it's like people are like, Russia, please nuke us already. Like seriously, like a lot of people saying that.
And you wonder then how the trend even started, because you can engineer stuff like that, right? So it's just like a bunch of bots are just like, they have a bunch of money for free in an account to do the free emojis. And then over time, people get sucked into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like my guess is that I mean, someone could look at this up and figure it out, I'm sure. But my guess, just based on limited information, is that she probably made a TikTok doing something like that, like a short one maybe. And then she could see that it went bigger and then kept doing that. And I mean, I think I watched that video from, what's it, Paul Joseph Watson? I think he makes that point, or one of the videos
that's how I heard about it.
That point where, I think someone made that point of like, oh, no, that's not what I was thinking of. I'm not going to play this video, but I was watching a video from this guy. It's like this comedian guy named Cody Ko. Have you guys ever heard of him?
No.
Just this guy. And he was doing this one where it's like he reacts along with his wife to stuff. That's like one of their things that they do.
Oh,
and
wait. Does he usually react to like food stuff?
Not necessarily. It's just all kinds of like stuff. And but there was this one video or it was like they were doing it like a reaction to a bunch of different videos. I think it was from TikTok or Instagram. I think TikTok. And it was this guy who was like, he like would cook some delicious dessert, and it would show the process and then show the dessert. So he was showing how the guy started out like 2 years ago, right? And then they show like where he's at now. And it's like, the guy's literally like taking like papayas and like finger banging them and like juices squirting out. And he's like, oh, like doing all this like very overtly sexual stuff. I mean, it's like, it was actually pretty funny. And then they showed like, okay, so this guy became popular doing it. And then they showed other copycats that come in and then just try to like basically replicate it like in their own way, because it's so they were making this point. That's where I got that idea of like this point of, they were like tracing it back to where was like the first video that he did where it was like even somewhat sexual. and it was like a video where he was making something, but then he had his shirt off and he's like very like ripped or whatever, a good looking guy. And somebody had made a comment of like, well, I couldn't even focus on the dessert. I just want to see you or whatever. And they were speculating like that was the day, where the guy was like, So then maybe he does another one with his shirt off, and he does another one where the next one, like he does some sexy look or something. And then like he starts to, so it's like the algorithm and people liking it and so forth. It's like the person is just following that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They're just following it like, oh, and then it becomes this point where
it becomes a disorder.
Like the guy, well, it's kind of the same. So I remember this time when Bernard said that technology is just the externalization of the mind.
Yeah.
And that really makes a lot of sense.
It's just like the fucking mental health thing we've been talking about the rest of this episode. Is like you're just fucking chasing the energy, totally neglecting reality.
Yeah.
And why is the person doing it?
They just want to be liked.
Energy and
But why,
positivity.
though? But it's money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which is a form of positive energy.
Right. What were you saying, Christine?
No, I was actually like looking at her page and everything because she has like, she knows it's an NPC thing. Like she's self-proclaiming it as an NPC thing that she does.
NPC.
Oh, I'm sorry. NPC. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was
like,
her Canadian accent.
Strikes again.
Like she's self-proclaiming that segment that she does on the live is an NPC.
Like she's
thing.
calling it that.
Yes.
Like she's
and
like,
she
I'm
has an
gonna be NPC.
OnlyFans and like so
of course
it's obviously like an attention thing. And I think like what you said, I was trying to see like where the thing started, but it doesn't have it. It just has all her videos or whatever. But
yeah, and it's interesting the commentary people saying like, oh, like as it's kind of like you would judge her as like what is she doing, like, but it's kind of like the same thing with the software underbelly. When you start looking into the psychology of why it's occurring, you're like, oh wow, I can actually understand what's going on here. And I mean with this, it's just obvious, like she's hit on something that the algorithm is promoting that she can make money with, right? Like I'm going to show some other part of it in a moment, but that was the same thing with those other videos with the guy doing the food and all that stuff, right? Where it's like that's what I was gonna say. Katie was telling me this morning there was some woman that I wish I could remember what the whole context was, but she was telling me about this woman who something happened in her life, or maybe it was a software underbelly thing actually, and she was telling me like the whole story, and then at the end of it, and Katie was like, and then she went and she did like she has an OnlyFans, and then she was making this point of like it's the thing that women can do from home to make money, and like she even has kids and stuff, and so it's all being driven by money.
Yep.
And like going back to, and so like people who would complain about this NPC fucking TikTok thing, if you go down to it and you're like, but if everybody had enough money for what they needed, why would that even exist? And would there not still be creative stuff? There would, but like, how is this actually creative? It is creative in the context of
a
our
limited
world
system.
right now. Like it actually is pretty creative that she figured out how to do that, because the NPC thing is already a meme. It's already a thing. You know what I mean? And she figured out a way to do it in a pretty creative way. But then you look at it and you're like, dude, she's grinding for like an hour. And this isn't the only one I saw like that was uploaded. There was like several of these like hour-long ones. Look, I'm just going to skip through it.
Balloon. Ice cream so good. Tia. Ice cream so good. Gang, gang, gang. Yes, yes, yes. Come. Slay, huh? Slay, huh? Oh, take it, Lynn. I love you. Yes, popcorn. Yes, popcorn. Balloon. Meow. Yes, popcorn. Balloon.
And there's certain points where like you'll hear the dog bark and she'll be like, ah, like she'll yell at the dog and then go right back into character. Right? But check this out. This is really fascinating.
Yes, 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 yes. Ice cream so good. Ice cream so good. Yes, 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 yes. Gang, gang. Meow. Ice cream so good. Zavi, a money gun. I got your name. Wow, a letter gift for you. Hee-ha, yes. Ce gars, feel like a cowgirl. Let me read it. Je pense, mais ça là, ça sent bizarre. Ça là. Pourquoi ça sent comme ça? Ça là. Montre-moi, pourquoi ça sent comme ça? Oh. Viens ici, Bouddha, viens ici. Montre-moi pourquoi ça sort comme ça. Viens ici, debout, lève-toi, lève-toi. Lève-toi. Montre tes mains. Non, je veux voir tes deux mains. Montre-moi tes mains. Montre-moi, viens ici, montre-moi. Va là avec tes mains. C'est quoi ça? Tu as 5 ans, tu as 5 ans. T'as pas honte toujours ton caca? Vas-y, va là avec tes mains.
I do not know what's going on, but
She's speaking French.
She's speaking French.
She's talking about her kid. She's yelling at her kid.
Is there a kid or a dog?
It sounds like she's talking to a person.
There was a dog, but she's talking. I think she's talking to her kid. Someone who speaks French can tell us.
Guys, I'm gonna come back. I got something really disgusting just happened. Anyways, see you soon, baby. See you in a minute. Love you. Non, tu montes ta chambre parce que là, tu tombes en punition. C'est vraiment dégueulasse ce que tu as fait. C'est vraiment dégueulasse. C'est vraiment, vraiment dégueulasse. Tu as 5 ans. Tu n'as pas 2 ans, tu as 5 ans. Monte ta chambre. T'as pas de télé aujourd'hui. Oublie ça. Il n'y a pas de télé pour toi aujourd'hui. Tu es dégueulasse. C'est dégueulasse. Vas-y. Va essuyer tes mains.
Yeah, that's clearly a child.
Anyways, guys, I gotta go. I really got shit to do right now. Oh, yeah. You know, some kids love to play in their shit. Gotta go clean now. Bye, guys.
So maybe our
She said her
French people can-
5-year-old is touching his poop and she's mad about it. That's what Natalia translated it for us.
Right. Because you're saying like caca and all that stuff, right? So clearly, like the kid is like took his shit, right? Ever, and like I don't know, like I said, right? But what's fascinating is, let me put it back real quick.
It's the only way the kid's getting attention.
But just look at the difference when she's talking to the kid.
C'est vraiment, vraiment dégueulasse. Tu as 5 ans. Tu n'as pas 2 ans, tu as 5 ans. Monte ta chambre. Tu n'as pas de télé aujourd'hui. Oublie ça. Il n'y a pas de télé pour toi aujourd'hui. Tu es dégueulasse. C'est dégueulasse. Vas-y. Va essuyer tes mains.
Someone puts the fucking cowboy hat on her.
Anyways, guys, I gotta go. I really got shit to do right now. Oh, yeah. You know, some kids love to play in their shit. Gotta go clean now. Bye, guys.
So it's so fascinating because like, and I'm not judging her for like, she's yelling at the kid or whatever. It's just, you see the difference of like, okay, I'm on camera. These people are paying me. I'm friendly. I got to be like what they want. And then with the kid, it's like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Like yelling, whatever. Right. And then like Katie was making this point of like, can you imagine? Cause I was showing her this, like you're the kid and you're watching your mom do this like for an hour.
Gang.
And then you said, she has an OnlyFans.
Yeah.
What is the kid doing when she's doing her? I mean, I'm assuming it's sexual stuff. Like, why the fuck else would you have an OnlyFans? Because she already has the TikTok, right? I'm assuming that, right? But regardless, like, what is the kid doing when she's doing that? And it's like easy to go into like, oh, this person's a terrible person, they're a bad mother and all that. Okay, but it's just money. It's survival. So when we talk about like, we have to compete for survival, it can sound like, oh, we're like out there fighting each other. It's like we're just in this system, like trying to find a way. And then whatever comes up, like the technology that's created, there's like trying to find some way to exploit it. And then she's having to sit there for an hour doing these robotic expressions, and people are willing to pay for that. They want to see that. They want to watch it. They want to pay her to do it. I mean, it's just a form of prostitution.
Right.
And like most of what people do for their work is a form of prostitution.
Yeah.
It's like they're going on, you would come home, you're irritated with your kids, you yell at your kids, you're mean to them, and you go to work and then you have to put on like a pleasant face. You
basically become like an NPC. Like you're literally becoming an NPC because you're running the program of, I have to do this to get energy, to get money, to continue to survive, to like, it's literally like, oh, how do you program an NPC? Well, you tell it like, you have to do this, or well, an NPC is not like really in a video game, they're not considering being deleted, but that's how we're motivating everybody's movements throughout this world. It's like, do this or you will be deleted, or you will be excommunicated from this society, essentially. And
it reminds me of that Bernard audio we listened to the other day. It's like radical character building or whatever it's called. Because yeah, it's this giant game of characters, and it's all these split characters and everything. And that's like the whole thread throughout this whole thing. It's like all these different characters, and especially for everyone who's been through DIP, it's like you understand more about what is a character really, and it's this whole offshoot of all of them. But in reality, like the only character that makes sense is just you as life doing what's best for all. And you can be creative in your expression. You can actually be way more creative in your expression because it's actually you coming through instead of this weird shit.
It's like the creativity that's coming through in like that NPC thing is just, it's not actually coming from the person, it's
not creativity really.
It's really not creativity. It's just what's already here. Let me try to put that together to get people's attention just so I can survive, essentially. And what's fascinating is when you look into all that TikTok thing, that NPC thing, then there's other people now jumping in on it. You know what I mean? Making their own versions and doing the same thing, kind of like I was talking about with those food videos. So it's just fascinating because this is kind of what would be promoted as empowering for like a woman. It's like, look, she's working, she's an entrepreneur, she's also got her kids, like she's working from home, like remote and all that, whatever. But I mean, the fuck, Mitch had to go do something. I want to play this for you guys real quick. So I'll play that video while he's, it's like a 5-minute video. I wanted to like skip it, but I just don't remember exactly what. Here's with Max. Okay. I want to preface this real quick. Actually, before I play this. So the other day I was like, hey, Max, I was like, can I show you a cool trick about multiplication? And he was like, okay. So we sat down and just dropped a grape on the floor. We sat down and then I showed him how to multiply two-digit numbers together. And I just kind of showed him the process. And he was like, that's pretty cool. He was like, can we do one with like addition? And I was like, okay. So he was like, can you make it like in the thousands or whatever? So he wanted an addition problem that was like, one of those vertical sum addition things. Adding like, multiple numbers together up to 1,000, where the digits would go up to 1,000 or whatever, or 10,000. And I think I started one with just two-digit numbers. I don't think I took a video of that one. And it was like 2 3-digit numbers or something like that, right? And I started to show him how to do it. And then before I even showed him the first, like when you do like a vertical sum, you do like the first column and the ones digit, right? I was like starting to show him, okay, so then you have, now it's over 10. So we're going to put a number. He's like, I already know that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, you need to carry the tens digit over here. Right. And I was like, okay, so then what would you do? And then he completed the rest of it himself. And I was like, how did you know how to do that? And this is the thing I've been trying to explain to people is like, it's not that we don't ever try to teach the kids anything beyond using their techno tutor. Cause like I was just explaining, I was like, hey, let me show you how to do some multiplication stuff. Right. And he's 6.5, just to see where he was at and if he would be interested in it and so forth. Right. And then we started doing the vertical sum thing and he could already do it. And I'm like, how can you like, and it wasn't because he's watched a video on vertical sums. Because I know like what videos we've given him and so forth, right? So I'm going to play this video. It is 5 minutes, but I just want you guys to see like what he does in his thought process and see like this is a 6.5-year-old kid. He just uses techno tutor. Okay, so let me just show this real quick. And if I see it makes sense, I might skip forward on some parts of it, but this is really cool. So I'd already written the problem down.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, just keep going here. Do you want one of these pens? That one's kind of old.
It's not from.
Okay.
so nice. Just once I'm done, I can use this turquoise, which is not very old. It's got a lot of pencil in it. Now 8 plus 0?
Now here's the thing, you gotta stay focused because sometimes what happens is you get...
0 or 6?
Hold on, hear me out. Sometimes you get distracted by something.
8 plus 0?
Maxie, hear me out for a moment. Sometimes you allow yourself to get distracted by something and you
Can
don't finish what you're
Karen,
doing.
can I just cross out this 0 because it means nothing?
But you forgot something.
What is
That's
it?
what I'm trying to explain to you. Sometimes like you got distracted by the pencil lead and you didn't finish what you were doing originally.
What was I doing?
Well, you gotta go back and look. Because you have a 6 there, but do you think all of that is 6?
No, there's a 22.
Right. But what did you not do?
I didn't put
Right, and that's what I'm trying. I don't want to tell you what to do. I just.
So you see how he got distracted for a moment?
the 0?
He got distracted for a moment, but then I didn't tell him what to do. He was like, "Oh yeah, I need to do that." Right?
Yeah.
Just ignore it. But if you cross it out, that might be confusing later if you're checking your work. But that's up to you. That's up to you.
2 plus 8, that's already 10. Plus 0, who cares? Plus 1 is 11. Plus 8 is 19. Plus 3 is 22. Plus 4 is 26. So I put 6 here, and I moved it 2 here, to the hundreds column.
Very nice.
2 plus 3 equals 5, plus 1 equals 6, plus 2 equals 8. Wait, no. 2 plus 3 equals 5, plus 6 equals, plus 2 equals 8. 8 plus 8, you know that, 16. Plus 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So I carry the 9 down here. 9 is here. And put the 1 up here. 1 plus 1 equals 2, plus 4 equals 6. Plus 5 equals 11. Plus 4 equals 15. Plus 1 equals 14. Did I say? Did I say 14?
How can I tell you? You can always go back and check
So
again.
15. And after 15, I think there's so 19. 19.
You should go back and check because I know you made a mistake, but I don't want to say what it is.
2, 6. That's 11. Plus 4 is 15. Plus 1 equals 16. Plus 4 equals 19. Is that right?
Is 16 plus 4 19?
No, it's 8. No, it's 20. So there's nothing here except for a 0. 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just, well, 2 and then 2. Did it.
This is literally only the second problem we've ever done. It was the first one.
That was too simple.
That's great though. Really cool.
I know how to carry. I know how to carry because I know about binary.
How did you know about carrying and stuff? Oh, that's what you were just saying?
Yeah, I was talking about binary.
Because I was wondering, how did you know how to do this?
I watched Sebastian's League video, Sebastian Lag's video. He like in his video, he didn't only teach me about binary, but he also taught me about how to carry in math. But he was using binary, but now I know how to carry in real
So
math.
you just figured that out from the binary one
Yes.
to do that here. That is amazing. Wow. Very cool, Max.
Carrying is the easiest way.
That's the easiest way? Yeah. That's really, really cool.
Give me an even harder problem.
Want a harder one?
Here, bring me into billions.
How old are you?
6.
Wow.
Yeah, you should bring me into billions now.
You want billions? Okay, hold on.
Sure.
Let me stop this.
And do 8 numbers
Okay.
this time.
How did you know 8? Oh, you mean like 8 total numbers? Okay, hold on. Let me write it down.
Oh, I didn't get that part on video, but I asked him, I was like, so how many digits should I put? And he was like, 9. All right, for a billion. He like knew immediately. I want to show you one more thing real quick, just so you can see like what, when he was talking about Sebastian Lag.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is the video he's referring to. It doesn't really matter, but it's one of these videos. This is what I downloaded for him that he's been watching.
I've made a simplified and abstracted little simulation where we have our 2 logical building blocks and a knot, and we can play around and try figure some stuff out. So on the left here are some inputs which can be turned on and off, or we can also think of it as true.
See, and the guy in the video
output is
explains
on,
like
and vice
logic
versa.
or truth
And
tables
this is
in
known
binary.
as the logical NOT operation.
Oh, here we go.
There are 10 digits, 0 through 9, and if we want to go higher than that, we need to add another place to the left, where each digit actually represents 10 times as much as those in the previous spot. And we can have as many places as we need, so here would be hundreds, then thousands, and so on. In the realm of electronics, though, it's easier to work with just 2 digits, because they can be naturally represented with a low voltage or a high voltage. So this binary system works in the exact same way as the decimal system. It's just that once we reach 1, we've already run out of digits, and so we increment the place to the left.
Right. And what's fascinating is if you look at it, it's like already that far into the video. So he's already watched all this. So that's where he learned about carrying. I mean, there may be more in the video. He learned about binary. The other day, it was like a few weeks back. I think I talked about it on one of our episodes. I have it on video of like asking him binary questions. Like I'll be like, what is 27 in binary? And he can do it in his head.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I want to emphasize with that is like, you can see he still has to sit there and think about it and be like, okay, 3 plus 5 is 8, 8 plus 7 is it 15 or 16? It's 15. And the reason I'm showing that is because he's not some savant. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, he's not some like kid who could just like, you know, calculate pi to 30 digits in his mind, like without ever even being told. Like, he's not a savant. He's a normal kid, but we've built in the vocabulary with TechnoTutor so he can understand and learn these things more effectively. So by the time he's 6.5, like he'll be 7 at the end of October. What is it, July right now? So yeah, it's basically 6.5 still, right? And he's already doing, you know, and again, that was the second problem I'd given him.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, it's not so I like showing the point of like how he's like makes mistakes, like, and I don't want to tell him like, oh, you do it this way. I'm not trying to teach him so much as help him understand it. And obviously if he didn't know how to do the vertical something, I would explain more, I would instruct more, right?
Yeah.
But what's so fascinating is because of his high vocabulary, giving him a video on like that Sebastian Lag stuff I was showing, I had gotten those from because it was about logic circuits or you know, logic gates and circuits and stuff. And he has an interest in that stuff. It wasn't to teach him binary per se. It wasn't to teach him carrying the tens and all that stuff, but he learned that. And then he was able to apply it in this situation that he had never seen before. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about.
That's pretty cool.
So people want to complain about, oh, look how dumb everybody is because of like, they just want to watch this NPC stuff. And it's like, imagine if from a very young age, you were supported to have a really high vocabulary and to learn about stuff. So you're not just, you're able to be more proactive. You're able to adapt more, you know?
Also the raised with the principles,
Yeah.
you know, because it's like now the problems Max is going to focus on solving is also going to factor in how do we change the system in a way instead of current things.
And we're talking to him about like directing himself within his emotions and all these points, right? Because those points come up, you know, and we explain like when we go into reactions or we go into like a fear or whatever the points are, and then we talk about it and we support the points, right?
Yeah. It's also really cool to see just like, I remember growing up the way my mom and I think a lot of minorities, a lot of people who, you know, they're like Latino, especially, or Black, the way that they seem to expect their child to learn is like, I told you one time,
right?
Why don't you get it? You know, it's like, and that's it's funny because there's this expectation, but that never is the case. And you know that's not the case. But then with your kids and, you know, the kids who've been using Technotutor, that is actually the case for them. It's like they can see something, just something that you're not even necessarily trying to teach them, and they can adapt that. They can go, oh, okay, I can actually play around with that and use that. And you're not even expecting that of them.
Right.
That's the great part. Is like you're not even expecting that of them. It's just they're picking it up, and it's like it's so natural for them because their ability to learn is being supported very effectively.
You also haven't crushed their self-esteem by
Yes,
spanking
also.
them and hitting them, because that's a huge
Right.
point too. Like Max isn't sitting, like when he's getting it, he's like, is that right? It's like not in this point of, oh, like I messed up or whatever. It doesn't even cross his mind, you know? So it's pretty cool because it's like just showing how if you just, the thing is, you actually, as the parent too, you have to understand how reality actually works and how your mind works so that you can then pass that information on to your child. Because just giving them the vocabulary with no emotional stability, that's why you get like some people who are really intelligent, but then again, they have the emotional trauma, which is what we're kind of doing with this whole group. It's like a whole lifestyle system, and for you to actually nurture your child effectively, to not then have to go and compromise in some way in their future to survive in the system later on, you know?
Absolutely. I want to share one more thing. So here's the problem that he did. The black ink is my handwriting, obviously. And there's his, right?
Yeah.
And then this was last night. Yesterday we went to a neighbor's pool, swam a bit, and we didn't get home till very late. And it was just like 10 o'clock at night. And I went out, I was like unloading the car for a bit, like taking everything out, like the cooler and all the stuff that we had brought. And I come inside and Max had poured himself some pineapple juice and was sitting here reading a novel. This is 10 o'clock at night.
That's so cool.
Right? But yeah, Drake, you had commented in the chat about the way Max writes his letters and stuff. Isn't it fascinating? Like
It
the way
is.
he forms them.
It's so fascinating because I would never even, like, when he's starting a number or a letter, I'm like, I don't even know what the number is going to be until he writes it. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's an interesting way to do a 6 or even a 9. And then even the 2s, the way he starts his 2s, I'm like, wow, that is, I'm so,
I mean, look at
used
that.
to-
Look at the 2 here.
Yeah.
Right. And then compare it to mine. It's not that much different.
It's
But
not.
like I go from the top down like that, like which
Yeah.
what most people would do. This is just how you were taught.
Yeah.
But he started writing before he was at the age where anyone would ever even teach a child to write.
Right.
And same with Seneca. Seneca can write too. She can write entire I don't know if I have a picture. She likes to write messages and stuff to me.
It's just
I'll
so
see if I can
fascinating.
find one.
He's like writing the 9, like actually how you, like in a keyboard, like how it comes up on the computer.
Exactly.
I mean, because
Mhm.
in school you get taught like this very symmetrical way of writing all your letters and numbers, but then when you see it on like a screen or something, it's not the same thing actually.
Oh yeah, the 9, I actually do it like vertically, but
right.
I'm looking at the keyboard like you're saying, and it's actually just the upside down 6. It has the curve to it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
actually how which would make sense because that's how he learned it.
Exactly.
He learned it
So-
from integrating it. Yeah.
So it's so interesting because like that's something that I don't ever think about, like how we write numbers and letters and things like that. Like there are certain letters that I know I write differently than Christine, you know, like the letter D or something like that. But for the most part, like pretty much everyone writes their letters, at least here in the state of Florida. Don't know about your state over there, but pretty much everyone writes their letters and numbers like the same way, you know, and so to see somebody writing in a different way, it's like, to me anyway, it's just like, it's fascinating, but like it's something that draws my attention, especially because like you're saying, in preschool, if you're like 4 years old, 5 years old, they're like, okay, we're going to practice writing numbers or letters or whatever it is, and then they have you trace over something,
Printing.
and it's
like,
this step first. No. You started from the bottom. No, you got to start from the top, and you got to do it exactly this way, and then this way. It's like
worksheets. Man,
yeah, and so even
do
in the
that
way
shit.
that you express yourself has been conditioned.
Yeah.
You know.
Check this out.
Wow.
I found like a random one. This was from June 22nd. This is Seneca wrote this, and she like brought it to me.
Oh,
It says
hi,
hi
Cam.
Cam. But what's interesting is look, she wrote hi, and then she started to see here, and I'm imagining she's probably like, no, I don't want it to look like that. And she tried again, but then it wasn't formed the way she wanted. She tried again, and then ran out of space, so she put the A up there. And you can see kind of how she went through that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because like when she was younger, when she would write a word, she would write the letters kind of all over the place. You know what I mean? But the more she uses TechnoTutor, she's starting to, again, this is not like a point we had to correct. We had to go, no, you don't write it like that. You do it like, and it might be interesting because somebody might say, oh, well, you're not directing them. You're not getting them to do these exercises, it's like, but hold on, because at what age would a child be doing those writing exercises?
Yeah, like 5.
Would it be at 5 even? I don't know, maybe.
Well, in preschool here, like in like voluntary pre-K, they start them like trying to write the letters at
writing some letters, but not even like writing like words and
Oh
sentences.
no, not words.
Yeah.
No, maybe
right,
your
so
name.
but the point where you would be writing a sentence,
Yeah,
you wouldn't even be doing that at 4 years old.
No.
You see what I mean? And so like, and both of our kids started writing, I'm thinking probably around, not sure about Seneca, maybe late
Max
3,
has
early
full-on
4.
books now.
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting because even if there's a criticism of like, well, you're not following some curriculum or some whatever, it's like, they're not at the age where that would even make sense. So it's not that they won't they won't have a curriculum of some particular subject they're going to learn, but that's in a book. Like if you wanted to learn computer programming, you could just go to get a book on computer programming or watch a course. Right. But you wouldn't do that at 5, would you? Is that what the system would expect a 5-year-old to be doing? So what's interesting is our kids are already learning a lot of stuff in that curriculum just by like absorbing it through having the vocabulary and then watching videos and things like that and things that we show them or whatever, right? It's like I'll randomly find a book on like programming, like, sitting out on the bed or somewhere where Max was reading through it. Right.
Yeah.
And he absorbs that stuff. So it's pretty interesting. And I just wanted to show that as sort of like a juxtaposition with the, all the other stuff that we're seeing, where it's like, imagine like you spending your time as an adult sitting for an hour watching this woman do this NPC stuff and paying her to do it. What must be going on within that person?
One who's paying them?
Because that is also a psychological compulsion, isn't it? Yeah, the person paying them. And I'm sure that's not like they just do it one time and then that's it. I'm sure that's like a constant
Subscribing, like literally.
Yeah. Right. Another thing that's interesting too is like if you watch the software underbelly ones are good, but there's also other people who are sort of like doing similar things, but they just talk to somebody who's like literally standing on the street. And they talk to like people who are addicted to drugs, prostitutes, things like that. Like there's this one guy who goes around New Jersey and Philadelphia, New Jersey and Pennsylvania rather, and talks to people on the street. And it's fascinating because you see how they get addicted to drugs and then they're doing the prostitution to get the money for the drugs and how it just totally, that's what they become. And it's easy to judge that point, but then it's like, you could see how within yourself, how you participate in your mind and how that could be you if circumstances were slightly different.
Yeah.
If you were in that person's shoes, how would you have done anything differently?
Yeah.
And so there has to be a change in the system to support, because like look at that little girl in that TikTok, or that, I don't know if it was a girl, the child in that TikTok video where the mom was like yelling at them or whatever for shitting on the floor or whatever they were doing. I don't know. They're not getting the attention that they need. So that
Yeah.
child could easily grow up and be a child who has a bunch of problems and as an adult and so forth, right? I mean, look, the mom has to be in a position to do that. I mean, isn't that actually just degrading?
Yeah.
And he could even just like that kid when he grows up could even justify like I lived in a nice house. I lived, you know what I mean? Like
I had a great
all-
childhood, and didn't need anything,
Just
My mom would just yell at me for touching my own shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just like, I mean, that's acceptable right now in our society.
Well, look how she was like, I have to go now, guys. I got to go clean up. I got to go clean something. And it's like, yeah, but what were you just doing for an hour?
Yeah.
Like, is that any better?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not fun to clean up your kid's shit. Like, I get that, but you had to sit there for an hour doing like, so good. Yeah, cowgirl, and it's like, that's what you're doing for a fucking hour. Like, that's got to be like draining.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Crazy.
Sure.
He like actually goes out to get ice cream afterwards, and she's like, so good. She's like, oh shit, I become the NPC.
Yeah, but then they just get addicted to like the money because that's like the equivalent of the energy that you're getting from. Because it's like, how could you keep up that persona for so long and then just kind of go about your day to day? It's just like, well, I just know that if I do that again, I'll get like apparently she makes like $4,000 per stream like that. So, and that's an hour. So it's like, and then you see that also with the other prostitutes and people that are on the streets and everything. It's the same thing. It's like, well, I just know that if I go out there, I'll make however much money, and that's better than like me getting a job, for example. Because like a job, I can't imagine myself working like a 9 to 5.
Imagine too, though, in the back of her mind, knowing like she's only got X amount of time in her life where she's like young and pretty. So that paranoia too, maybe probably hasn't even, well, I don't know. Maybe she's thought that far ahead, maybe not, but like, fuck, what's going to happen when I'm like 50, 60? It's like,
I mean, some of them just keep doing it's
yeah,
kind of messed up.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it's also sad too because another like common thing I've seen is like people will kind of revert if they're trying to get out of the lifestyle. They also try to revert to religion or something. That's a common thing. And then there was one guy in particular. He was an ex-gang member, and
gang.
He was basically saying that he like he met some pastor, and then the pastor basically had told, because this guy, he was involved in all kinds of stuff, ended up in jail and whatever, and then the pastor was basically saying like, it's okay, like you're just a flawed human, and like this brought in the whole like sins of the father type kind of thing. It's like, we're born flawed. You're dealing with your flawed self, essentially,
which just justifies that you can't change.
Like, right, exactly. Like you're born this way, like, and you
Yeah.
actually can't change, and we're just going to
Lady
accept
Gaga
things the way
said.
that exactly.
So
yeah.
So I was just remembering, because what I see here is there is clearly, children aren't being supported, and then they're being like kind of cast into a system or thrown into a system that is also not supportive at all. And you can see the like kind of that doomer sort of mentality of like, we're flawed, we're never going to fix it. It's just like, let's end it all, like why don't we just start over from the beginning? No humans, which that doesn't make sense. But
so you want to start back as amoeba and work your way all the way back up.
Right.
To this exact point.
It's not like you're going to remember as an amoeba, like, oh, what I did wrong along the way. Like, oh yeah, when we got to industrial farming, we shouldn't do that. We no pesticides. Like,
right. It's like we're here now. We actually have, there's a really great audio on that. But we're here now. We have all this technology. It could be really cool if we align ourselves with what's best, right? And just kind of adding to that point of like, where people are going right now. If you just leave people to the path that they're on right now. We're seeing Rebecca posted in Massachusetts, in Cambridge, of all places, they're removing the higher level math courses in the middle schools. They don't even have algebra in the middle schools. They're removing algebra. I'm like, that's not even higher level. That's like I learned algebra in 6th grade, like it's okay. Anyway, they're saying that the reason for it is because they've got a lot of Asian students, a lot of white students in these classes, but not anything else. And they don't know how to make these classes equitable. So we're just going to remove them. And it's like, you're basically just saying, we don't know how to bring everybody up. So we have to lower the bar, which is what school has been doing for decades. Okay. But if you're not paying attention, these things sort of like they slip by and you don't even know what's going on, right? But this has been going on for decades now. And if you continue putting your children in that system, you're going to get basically the lowest common denominator. You're going to get the lowest potential from your child. It's essentially going to be like, I don't even know. It's like, there's so many thoughts racing through my mind right now of, imagine if you had an athlete, right? You take, I don't know, someone who's super strong, they've got the endurance, they could be anything. You take a LeBron James, right? You take a LeBron James and you never expose them to basketball because you're like, well, the other kids are not going to be that great. So, they get no training, no support, no understanding of nutrition or lifting weights or any of that stuff. And it's just like, you figure it out, right? and then on top of that, you're like, let's just put you in a room where everybody, instead of running while dribbling the ball, everyone just learns to just walk on the court, okay? Because that's what everybody can do. Oh no, wait, we got people who are in wheelchairs, so everybody just sit down in a wheelchair, even though you can walk. I get that, but like, just to make it equitable, everybody now uses a wheelchair. And we're just not going to have a ball. Just use your mind and pretend like the ball is going through the hoop, okay? And so that's that way everybody feels we're on a level playing field.
It just doesn't. It's like, okay, so you don't know how to get more Hispanic and Black kids in the class, so you're just going to remove the class. It just shows the level to which the schools are not in any way considering what is best at all. And the fact that they can't, even though they've known about the problem for however long, of children don't have a high vocabulary, and that's why they learn at different rates, and that's why there's division and so forth. It's like, if you look at the practical point of school being really a way of reducing competition at the higher levels of society, makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now it's time just to not let anybody get ahead. And so if you're going to have your kids in school because you need daycare basically while you work, okay, I understand, then at least supplement that with the vocabulary point. And it works. It doesn't matter if you're white, you're Black. Am I even allowed to say that? It works for you no matter what your race is. You seem like that should be something that you should have to say.
Yeah.
But it seems like almost like, oh, you say it works for anybody regardless of their race, even if they're Black. And it's like, yeah, wait, hold on. Do you actually think that Black people learn differently?
I think the education system does believe that.
Isn't it? Like, people would think like, well, okay, it works for like a white kid, but because they're white. And it's like, so what are you saying exactly?
Yeah.
What are you saying that you actually believe? Right. But the reality is, it's, we live in a racist world, don't we?
Yeah. The crazy
it doesn't
thing
actually
about
consider everyone actually as equal.
Yeah. The crazy thing about that story is, like, you might think that's like just a recent thing, but they had planned to phase out these higher level math courses, quote unquote higher level, right, since 2017. So it's not just like a recent thing, like, oh, because of COVID or whatever. It's literally just like, no, from 2017, they already saw this trend happening and they were like, yeah, we got to remove these classes.
It's almost like they might as well, yeah, get ahead of it and do it so that it doesn't keep showing that there's a disparity or something.
Right.
It's like, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
It's like they, meaning like people in the system, I suppose, would rather, I guess it's like if you were an administrator or you were someone, some kind of bureaucrat, and it was like, you're the one who's the head of this department. And then now look, the thing that you're in charge of is showing that there's a racial disparity. Aren't you going to basically get in trouble? So you don't know how to solve the problem. So you would be like, well, let's just eliminate any semblance of a racial disparity.
Right. Right.
Because they don't have a solution. So all they can do in that system is just remove anything. Yeah. Of course, what good is all these kids going to school and learning advanced math doing for them anyways at this point? Not saying they shouldn't learn math, but I mean, even in the school context, like I took all the advanced math courses. I took AP calculus, AP chemistry, AP physics, or whatever, you know, all those different things. And like, what good did it do me? Because I didn't actually learn anything. I just took it so that I could pass the test, so that I didn't have to take the course in college. So I could get like a basically free credit for college. That's really, so there's like all this weird incentive behind it.
Yeah.
So not even looking at what's actually best. Are they actually learning anything? The whole thing is fucked, you know? And so I like to share those videos with Max and Seneca and everything, because it's like, you know, and look at like, for example, obviously people aren't seeing it right here on the podcast, but you look at like Gaetan's son, Juanilo, who's like a little bit older than Caius, and he's already recognizing letters, speaking, you know, like understanding it at a pretty high level. Right. And then I saw recently Austin and Giselle posted a video of Luna.
Yeah.
Right. She was doing letters. She's like barely 2 years old. And
also Salo and Giovanna.
Salo, oh yeah, that's right. His daughter was
Aria.
doing what, letters, or I can't remember.
Letters,
now.
yeah.
Letters, right? And she's around that same age, I think, right?
Yeah.
I saw Sam, they posted one of their son like doing like awesome. 2-letter words and stuff, and he's like 2 years old or whatever. So
wow.
You know, black, white, Asian, Mexican, Hispanic, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We all learn the same way. It's just that the problem is we've allowed a system that the certain like privileged few try to keep everything. Oh, real quick, Soft White Underbelly. Have you seen the ones about the Whitakers?
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
I was like kind of like avoiding watching him because I was like, oh, it doesn't seem interesting to me. But I was like, what is this?
I've seen interviews with them before, because people go interview. Apparently, he made them kind of famous. It was his original interview.
Explain for Mitch and anybody else watching who are the Whitakers.
Like, they're a West Virginia incestual family, essentially. They like have the most incest like ever recorded. I don't know. And they've been inbred for like generations, that to the point that they're like developmentally retarded, a lot of them.
Like there's this one guy, and I don't know how old he is. He must be like 60 or something. He's like one of the people that live in the house with the family and everything. And he just barks. Like he doesn't even talk. He'll just be like, huh, 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 huh. Like that's how he communicates. Huh. That's it. You know, and they all look like really retarded and like just like messed up. And like all of them are like, oh yeah, we got some dinner. You know, like they're just like, you're like, fuck, man, these people are fucked. So like that's the opposite of what I was saying earlier of like, you know, you have these genetic lines where they keep all of the benefit and the knowledge.
Right.
And this is like the exact extreme opposite of that. I mean, the whole family, like everybody, I mean, I've only seen a few of the interviews with them, but it's like the guy's even trying to ask them questions. And it's like, they don't even, you know, it's like if I was like, tell me about your family, you'd start talking about it, right? They might be like, yeah, we got a family. You know, he'd be like, yeah, brothers and sisters. They'd be like, sisters, yeah. How many? Yeah, probably a few. You know, you'd have to like ask like 5 questions just to get like one answer. You know, like, so anybody who has no idea what I'm talking about, like, go look up, you know, the Whitakers, or you can look it up on Software Underbelly. It's fascinating because you could see like how when you don't direct the point effectively, what happens. So that's like the extreme example of like the low education, low vocabulary, to the point where, I mean, it's just like they're all messed up, man.
You know, someone was making this point. I think it was in that Plandemic 3 video. The guy who was the old timey guy from way back when was making this point of if we don't take action, he's like, we will do something. Like we have to, we will win, is what he said. But the question is really, how much work do you want to, how much consequence, I'm rephrasing obviously, right? But how much consequence do you want to accumulate that you're going to have to work through? Because we're going to be saying to ourselves, man, I should have done it back then when it was very simple to do, right?
That's why the whole like end everything now doesn't make sense at all. It's like,
yeah,
someone saying that, you don't even understand the consequence. You don't understand what you have to face. Like, it's just like a giving up. It's not acceptable.
Right. It's like you're not dead, right? So that means you can keep going. You have an opportunity. You know,
I was listening to an EQOP interview recently, and they said, I think it was one of the Soul and Money ones or something, like an older one. And they were saying, as long as you're breathing, as long as you're still here, what's the point? As long as you're still here.
So you have enough.
Do you guys remember?
I remember something like that, where it's like you have enough, like, to figure it out. Like the sheer fact that you're here in this reality and you're breathing, like you have.
But it was kind of like that point of like, you know, if you feel like that, you know, it's too late or something, you know.
Yeah, it's not too late.
Let me find it real quick.
So if you're still breathing, it's not too late. Still have a chance. We can change this. We're here. Like that's, you know, evidence that we can do it. Now,
oh, here it is. Oh yeah, yeah. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're here, it's not too late.
Yeah, see.
So there's no, so that whole doomer thing, it's like, it was interesting because the guy's conclusion was like, he was like, don't go and tell all your friends all this stuff. And he was like, I love people, but also like he believes people are like the reason why the world is fucked. So it's just like, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It was almost like a form of pornography to just like think about how fucked everything is or something. You know?
So hey, we're still here, we're still breathing, which means it's not too late. But the question is, how much more work, or more consequence rather, do you want to accumulate for yourself before we get this corrected? We can correct this now, or like that doomer was saying, like we could end up all in tents and, you know, surrounded by a bunch of homeless people who are also in tents, but also, you know, doing drugs and all this stuff, and thinking to ourselves like, well, now we have to do it. And I wish I would have done it when I still lived in a house, you know, when I still had access to a lot of networks and, you know, whatever. So let's do it now. Let's get this done and support ourselves so that we can actually prevent that from even happening.
Yeah. Right. And it's on each individual person to see that. It's like we can give advice and stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, it's on you to make the decision each and every day and move yourself.
Process. Yeah.
Yeah. And like go invite people, like share it.
Yeah. And don't feel bad. Like I find it's easy to watch those interviews and just feel bad about it. And then that kind of becomes the way that you motivate yourself. You're like, well, I'm feeling bad. But really it's like, how can you direct that to self-motivate you to actually take responsibility for you and what you can do in the position that you're in, you know, knowing that this is the reality that we do live in, you know? So, right.
So see you guys next week.
See you on the Friday. Bye.
Bye.